All right, so here we are with the S&P 500 and Bitcoin weekly open. We've got Bitcoin, as I was expecting, sitting at $88,000 today. This is not coming as a surprise, and it's because of just the kind of bullish setup that we had going into this weekly open, right? We had this nice triangle here that I was talking about. We got that final test into this purple box, all exactly as predicted on this YouTube channel. So shout out to those of you that were subscribed and smashing up the like button and all that good stuff to this YouTube channel at that time. Obviously, we've got some phenomenal links in the description for you guys to take advantage of these markets where you get more free money that you can deploy into the market after you start trading using these links, which is really cool. So check them out if you're not from a restricted region, if you are allowed to in your country. But here's Bitcoin, like I said, at 88K. This is a resistance zone, but we do not seem to be worrying about that at all right now. There's so much we need to unpack, but I don't have a lot of time, so we're going to be going through this quickly today. And if we're looking at this chart just kind of as it is, like I said, shorts, bears are going to be kind of looking to take on some shorts right now. That's going to start to look a little bit dangerous if Bitcoin gets above, I'd say, $89,000. And right now we're about $700 away from that. So it's kind of like right here that we need to top out for bears to kind of have a chance. And then, we've got, basically support down here that we can always back test to find as, basically a bounce zone. And then we can kind of get above the range somewhere a little bit like that. Of course, this could just be something with a little bit more strength, right? But all of this to me is kind of being called into question. By the way, before we continue, look at this. This is Bitcoin's dominance, a brand new high here from the last couple of days. Still not as high as the original high that we set in early February, but we are getting there and we are definitely trying. This looks pretty legit to me. And here's Ethereum, just by extension, sweeping its low. Altcoins are in a pretty bad place right now. We will get to them in just a second. But what I think is kind of surprising is the S&P 500. In the last video, I was telling you, look, this is a bounce zone. This is where I'd expect the S&P 500 to bounce. And I was obviously completely wrong about that. But it doesn't seem to have mattered for Bitcoin anyway, right? And then my Bitcoin prediction ended up coming true anyway. So a weird circumstance right now. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversations in crypto right now about kind of the idea that, we could be seeing some sort of decoupling with Bitcoin no longer trading, so tightly with traditional finance. I don't know if we're necessarily there yet, but this is definitely a sign that, Bitcoin is trying to break out of that mold a little bit. Obviously, the last time that this kind of really went viral, I think it was like either here or like on one of these bigger drops, and the S&P 500 dropped and Bitcoin just didn't. It was just chilling basically, but it did end up catching up and it got pretty severe afterwards, right? So, we're seeing cracks starting to show. I think that's really the conclusion here. There's not enough consistent evidence yet to tell me that Bitcoin kind of moves in its own way again. But we're doing it more and more. And, I think the bottom line that actually makes this a really interesting and actually potentially quite a bullish chart, it's just the fact that, today, this daily candle kind of just started, right? Like we're kind of at the beginning of this candle. We're making this video a little bit earlier today because of how important this is. There is a lot of room for this to turn around throughout the course of today's trading session and throughout, of course, the rest of the week. I don't really think that there's anything particularly bearish going on as far as, Trump tariff concerns and, just all the kind of typical things like that we, occupy ourselves with in these markets. I don't know if we're kind of necessarily looking at something like that right now. So, this really could be any number of things, but one of the things we've seen quite consistently is that weekly opens, the initial kind of couple of hours, end up getting reversed actually quite often, and same just for daily candles themselves. So these are just kind of observational notes that I've made. Look at this, by the way. Here's Tesla, just basically right back down to, just swing lows right here. So this, again, definitely an interesting buy zone, I think, for people speculating on Tesla. Probably at this point, it looks like it might sweep that low and come back down to the bottom here, which would be such a phenomenal place to see Tesla fall down to. This is about 170. It'd probably hurt a couple of people if it came down here, but that's not going to stop the markets from moving. We need to be really, really clear about that. That's one of the big things that we kind of really hone in on and discuss on this YouTube channel, is that it doesn't really matter what your wallet wants the market to do. The market's just going to do what it's doing. But and again, with Bitcoin in that in that same kind of frame of mind, it's looking strong right now. It's looking pretty good. It's made pretty good use of some of its support on these smaller time frames. On the daily, it's broken out of some pretty significant resistance at this stage. This really is a chance for Bitcoin to turn things around and do something quite amazing. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like I said, it really is a chance for Bitcoin to do that, and that's something I'm quite excited to kind of see, how it continues to develop. Altcoins across the space are not doing super well. They're up today. A lot of altcoins are up. Here's Solana. It just had a really nice kind of back test and now back into its range. And, so they're doing okay, these altcoins, but obviously just living in Bitcoin's shadow, right? Like here's XRP just kind of like struggling its way up by another kind of 6 cents up to about $2.13. So, it's all exactly as I predicted. It's like I said, if Bitcoin starts going up quite aggressively, then why do you want to be in altcoins, right? Like you've just suffered through months and months and months of pain, and now the safe asset is going up, right? It's not the time that you're usually kind of recoiling a little bit from, just the sadness basically of losing money and being frustrated for months and months. And to me, that's not an environment where people are looking to take on additional risk that they don't need to take on. So I think that's why we're seeing, Bitcoin performing quite well, but altcoins kind of comparatively, yeah, sure, they're up against the dollar, but, again, if you're taking on the additional risk of being in alts, you should be getting paid disproportionately for that, right? Otherwise, it's just not worth taking that extra risk on. And I think that's where these coins kind of start getting a little bit weak. But if we bring it back to this chart right here, one of the big ideas that I had for you guys is that, we've got this kind of speculative, target that we can extrapolate just looking at the previous flagpole, and then taking that from our bottom to where we might kind of top out. That does put us at about kind of 96K the way I've drawn this here. I think this is pretty realistic, but obviously, we've just got to get through this resistance zone right here. If we do, then, this is pretty much guaranteed in my eyes, and it's also a kind of resistance zone, so that could be a macro top that, we've got to be, we've got to be open to this kind of possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Bitcoin is honestly, it's got simpler trends than that, really. Like if we look back at Bitcoin's market cycle, I've been saying this, a lot, but Bitcoin has actually had, quite simple kind of market ranges over the last year or so. Just in this bull cycle here, it's basically just been sideways and kind of consolidation downwards, but more or less just that, right? Like you can just draw boxes or parallel channels. Obviously this one's slightly different. In this case we're drawing two boxes, right? Something a little bit like this, and I'm drawing this very roughly because I know that you've seen this a million times on this channel. And so because of that, I just don't think that we're looking at particularly, because this would be a very complex trend, right? Like you kind of like fall out of a range, reclaim it a little bit, and then it's typical. It would be typical if we did it kind of more in a straight line, but the fact that we had this like weird kind of broadening wedge, or however you drew it, in between, it's just a little bit strange, to me. I don't really see this kind of leading into a massive bull trap. It could be, it definitely could be, but I'm just not that pessimistic. So that's kind of just my market takes right there. But yeah, like I said, bull trap territory, we still got to be open to it. And that could really send us down to, look, we're good anywhere above kind of 50K. I've been saying this for a while. That's our previous macro low. So as long as we're not sending lower lows on a macro stage, you just can't scare me. I've been doing this for over 8 years, and fear is not really something I feel anymore. It's not a nice thing. It's very numb. It's very, very numb when you've been doing this for a long time as a trader. It's nice as a trader, but it's not something to be envied. Yeah, maybe you want the money anyway. In that case, it's obviously worth it, but keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. You're entering the arena of being a trader. Okay, you're gonna come out of this very numb and scarred, but that's okay. That's kind of part of the game. And so yeah, I think these kind of levels as kind of macro lower highs. Lower lows. We just don't want to set macro lower lows. But as long as we're not doing that, we're good. I know that people don't like hearing me say that, but again, the truth is the truth. We're not going to shy away from it for that reason alone, or for any reason for that matter. But yeah, Bitcoin, like I said, looking good in that side. If we just look on this on a shorter time frame here, my English is escaping me now. Yeah, like I said, if we do end up getting a bit of a pullback, we've got a nice range down at kind of 84. I could also expect some support at about kind of 85, 86. There's been a couple of kind of rejections happening here, even if you trace it back. So there are some good ranges for Bitcoin. It's definitely not over by any means if we kind of start visiting those price levels, but Yeah, we've just got to kind of keep an eye on it. But with that, ladies and gents, quick video for you guys. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you smash up those likes. Double check, of course, that you are subscribed to all that good stuff, and check out these beautiful links to huge bonuses. OKX is great, very, very highly trusted exchange. They've got a Web3 wallet, and for those of you in Dubai and in the UAE, you can actually use these guys to withdraw straight into your bank account. They're even US compliant. So check it all out. Really, really cool stuff. If you are interested, again, do not use any of these links if you're from restricted regions. With that, ladies and gents, I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.